Well, we're back today with a financial person. Her name is Lingo. She's a financial coach and a CPA, but we are specifically targeting women who have been in long-term marriages, who may never have worked, are getting divorced, and now have to work because the money isn't available to continue to live. And then many other cases around that, many other layers of that complexity. So first of all, Linda, thank you very much for being a part of this program.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Judith.
No, this is going to be great. Now, I do have to share something. I have heard about this term gray divorces for years. I hate it. I understand it, but I hate it, because I'm elderly and I fall into that category and I don't want to be a gray person. Where did that term even come from?
Actually, so gray divorce is anyone 50 and older. They qualify for the term gray divorce. And because, as we mature gracefully, our hair naturally tends to change color. And so here's a quick fact. I dyed my hair. I colored my hair until my daughter graduated from high school. I had her late in life. And the day she graduated, I said, I am done. I am not coloring my hair anymore. So it's natural. I do put a little pink in it. Just, I got to have some fun here.
Oh my gosh, you're right. You
Yeah.
do. For those who are not watching the YouTube version, it's so cute.
So anyway, that's my little, I don't know, fun.
I love
But so that's how it came about, was 50 and older, gray divorce. And because that group is actually increasing in the divorce rate.
How much so? Do you have some numbers?
I don't have exact numbers, but I do know that the younger 25 to 39 has historically been around 60% of all divorces, and the 50 and older has been around 10%. We're actually seeing that 10% increase closer to 15%, and that younger group is decreasing. So we're seeing a shift in where our divorce rates are happening, more in the older, less in the younger.
You know what? That really makes sense. I can see that. Without exact numbers, I can really see that. The millennials are getting married later in life. They want to be financially self-sufficient, possibly have a home already, and then they're ready to get married. And still, jury's out if they want to have kids, right? Mm-hmm. And because we're living longer, that's what I thought, because we're living longer. And once we hit 60, we know we've got at least 20 more years, if not 30, ahead of us. We want to be really happy. It's hard to grow old together, isn't it?
It certainly is. And I can speak from experience. I was married for 40 years, thought I was going to, retire with my ex. And I ran the numbers. I was the financial advisor at that time. I knew what our retirement was going to look like. And sadly to say, it's one of the reasons I stayed in the marriage, probably 10 years too long. But you're so right. And because we are living longer, and because I think the stigma of divorce is not what it used to be. I mean, when I think of my parents, for them to get a divorce, there was a lot of stigma attached to it. And I think that is definitely diminishing. Yeah. And I think because women apply for divorce twice as often as men. So 2/3 of the time, the woman is the one that's going to file for divorce or mediation. And I think we are coming of age and finally saying, I don't want to be unhappy for the next 30 years of my life. Mm-hmm. It's not worth it. Or empty nesters. Oh, we stayed together because of the kids. And we didn't realize that until the house is empty. And it's like, now we really don't like being together. Or you're retiring and all of a sudden, you're together 24/7. And like somebody, so one of my clients told me, she goes, I said I would love him, until death do us part. She goes, but I didn't know that meant 24/7, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yes, isn't that something, how being an empty nester and retirement throws that monkey wrench into the relationship, and you really see how the relationship has progressed. Or the relationship was simply great for a while. And I say, give yourself credit for the relationship being great for a while. There are no guarantees it'll be for the rest of your life, although you would love that. You would love it to be the best relationship ever. And, we're together until one of us passes away. But, that doesn't happen like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think there's a lot of factors that are, playing into this.
Pardon me if you've said it and it just went out of my head. What was the trigger for you?
The verbal abuse.
Um,
It got, and the fact that my daughter graduated from high school. So I had her at age 44. And
mm,
I was a career woman, and my career came first, and I had her later in life. And silly me, but like so many women, it's like we got to keep the family together. And that was my belief too. And she graduated from high school, and it was like, okay, I didn't realize I'd pretty much been a single parent anyway. And when she was out of the house, it was like, okay, the abuse is beyond, I just can't handle it anymore. And I thought it was interesting. I did a little research, and I've heard this many times, but the leading cause of divorce, especially in the younger group, but in all, is infidelity. And then second is abuse, whether it's substance abuse or whether it's a physical or mental. And his was verbal, so it was very much, there weren't any signs, which I think, people who are married to verbal abusers, it's really hard to admit that there's abuse, because there's no scar, there's no broken bones, there's no bruises, there's no physical evidence. Anyway,
right.
so abuse is the second, and finances is the third cause.
Yeah. So, all right, now we have the long-term divorce, the divorce for people 50 plus, and definitely 60s. I know we say 50 plus, but 60 is another interesting age, because when you get divorced, there is either enough money to go around so that you're financially set and you don't have to work, or there's not enough money to go around and you actually have to go to work. What if you've never had a job, or had a job well before kids, and the world is different now? So can we please address these two situations? Let's go with there's not enough money to go around.
Yeah, so, and that's really sad, because statistics are that a woman going through divorce in the 60s and older, her lifestyle, her income will decrease by 43%. Men's 41%. Men's will decrease by 23%. So it is a real thing to address. And that's part of the negotiation, or the mediation, if you will, because in your 60s, you're looking at Social Security. So you obviously have to take that into consideration, if he was the one working, or yours, if you were the one working, or what it's going to look like. And then any retirement. And this is where I tell my clients it's worthwhile hiring an expert in the pension plan, if it's a pension, so that it's divided equally and correctly. And my divorce was in California. I think that's where you are, Judith.
Right.
And so we had CalPERS was the pension that we were dealing with. And it's very complicated. And some of the best money I spent was having that expert come in and work with us to determine the best and fair way to split that pension. So anyway, Social Security, pension, there's probably some kind of a retirement, a 401k or an IRA that needs to be taken into consideration. And probably the biggest asset at that age is the family home. It probably has very little mortgage or no mortgage, because many people try to pay it off before they get retired. So that's a big asset that often the number one mistake women make is thinking they need to maintain the family home. Because, and I think you said this in an earlier podcast, I've listened to several of yours, and I love the fact that you talk about the emotional aspect of a divorce and the financial aspect.
Yeah.
Because the two get so entwined. I mean, the emotions get all gnarled up in the finances. And, when they have a mediator like you and who can kind of help them to stand back a little bit and take a breath and recognize the emotions that are impacting their financial decisions, what a blessing you are to so many people. Thank you.
Well, thank you for even saying that. But I've learned from my clients, whatever I say, I've actually learned from my clients. And I learned about going through the emotions of the separation, the fact that you are not going to be married anymore. So I call that the emotional divorce. You got to settle that before you engage in the legal divorce, because you need to be clear-headed when you make these decisions. As you just said, entangling the way you relate to the family home emotionally can cripple you financially.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So all that to say, if there isn't enough income, it's looking at all the resources. And this is where, not all, but many women in that 60 plus, maybe, like you said, didn't work full time. Maybe, were in and out of the workforce because of children or taking care of parents, as we're seeing a lot right now. And so it is evaluating what is available, how it's going to be split. And this is why it's so important for women to understand the home finances, have a budget, understand what's coming in and what's going out, because that is a starting point. Then actually having a budget in place for how you're going to live going forward, whether it's finding out what rentals are costing, where you want to live, utility, real basic things like that, but that will help women get on their own 2 feet and really recognize what they need. And if they are going to have a side hustle or something like that, and it is hard, later in life, it's not impossible.
Correct. It's not impossible. No, keep going. I just wanted to underscore that it's not impossible.
No, definitely not. And it's also an opportunity for women to think about the life they want to live. I mean, do you want to live where you're living? Maybe you want to live closer to the kids or the grandkids, or you've always wanted to live by the water, or, whatever it is, it's really an opportunity to think and to decide on the life you want to live moving forward, because that can help shape, obviously, your finances.
Yes.
Not only that, but, it's, of course, alimony. And you're the mediator, but it can be structured so many ways as to whether it's alimony until they qualify for Social Security, or whether it's, him getting a part-time job and helping to support them to a certain age. So there's a lot of options that can play into it.
So, Linda, what about women? And I don't run into this very much at all now. I used to 11 years ago when I started, and this kind of goes back to the statistics you presented a few minutes ago at the start of our conversation. For the woman who's never written a check, there actually are some women who have never written a check or balanced the checking account or done anything other than sign their name to the joint tax return.
Yeah.
What type of education do they need to feel confident and secure and be able to function moving forward?
Yeah. So, it is starting from the beginning, and that's educating themselves. And nowadays, oh my goodness, go to YouTube, or there's so many books, depending on what kind of a learner you are, or getting a financial coach. And it's actually walking them through how to do a budget. And if you're old school, you can do a pen and paper. There's nothing wrong with that. Money coming in, money going out. That is really what a budget is. And that's as simple as it can be. And that's what you're tracking. Or, if you're a computer person and you want to use an app of some sort, there's many out there. I personally use Mint. I love Mint. You can attach your checking accounts and your credit cards, so all your transactions are coming in. So it kind of depends on where they're at, but it boils down to knowing the income you have coming in and where it's going. And that means where all of it is going, whether it's a cash, where you're paying cash for something, or whether it's on a credit card, or whether it's writing that check. It's being able to identify where the money is going.
Like even those $5.50 Starbucks purchases, a friend of mine who is really good with money years ago said, Judy, it's not the big expenses that sink your financial ship. It's those daily $5 and $10 expenses that are unnecessary, like the trip to Starbucks. Now, please, if you're attached to Starbucks, I love Starbucks. I am not trying to get people not to buy coffee at Starbucks. But when you don't have unlimited money, when you're counting your pennies, you can't afford $5.50 a day on your way to work. You just can't afford that.
Absolutely. And that's where you have to identify what your needs are and what your wants are. And those needs are, it's a roof over your head, it's utilities, it's the heat in the house, it's probably your car and gas to put into your car. But even that, I look at my clients every penny, and it's like, do you need that expensive car, or can you get by on something less? I mean, and those are hard decisions, but the real decisions you may have to make if there's not enough money coming in. Maybe it means getting rid of the car payment and down, getting something that you can pay for. So it is wants versus needs. And I always say, don't let your credit cards finance your wants.
Good point, because I was going to ask you a credit card question. I was going to ask, if this is a long-term marriage and there's no abuse, it's just you've grown apart and you both recognize it, nobody hates each other, but you don't have a lot of money. You do, though, you as the woman, the wife, need to be have a strong foundation. So what's your opinion about getting yourself financially structured before you file? And one of those things is at least get a credit card while you're still married, while you can use your husband's income or your other spouse's income, if it's not a heterosexual marriage, but they're the higher earners. At least you need a safety net, don't you? A credit card safety net?
You read my mind. Yes. So two things. First of all, make sure you have a checking account and a savings account in your own name. And then the credit card. Yes, you have to have at least one credit card in your own name, so you are establishing your credit. And that leads me to another really important point, and that's run a credit report so that you know all of the loans and credit cards that are in your name alone and jointly. So when you read a credit report, and you can get one annually, and there's 3 credit reporting agencies, there's TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, and you can get one every year free, which I recommend my clients do, like one every 4 months. But when you're going into divorce, run all 3 of them so you know exactly what's there, because I've seen credit cards show up on one and not the other. All that to say is it's really important to know the credit that you are responsible for. And this actually happened to me, because once you divorce, if you are still on a joint credit card, you are liable. Whether you're the primary or the secondary, you are liable. And my divorce was nasty, and I hope none of your clients is like what I went through. But after I thought I had closed all of the joint accounts, or at least taken my name off of it, there was a credit card and another credit reporting agency I ran to. I thought, oh, I'm clear. Didn't run that third one, so shame on me. I learned. And he ran it up to the max and refused to pay. I was joint. It wasn't my primary, but I was joint, and I was liable for the expenses on that credit card.
Oh my God.
And if you take your name off, a phone call is not good enough. You have to do it in writing. That's what the credit The credit agent, the credit card, an agency came back and said a phone call isn't good enough. You need to put it in writing and keep a copy of that. So if anything ever happens, you have it. And so writing, take your name off of any joint accounts after you've made sure you have at least one credit card in your own name, because that's how you establish your credit score. And your credit score is so important because that's what the renter, your landlord's going to look at to decide if it's going to rent to you and how much. That's what your auto insurance uses in determining your homeowners. I mean, any loans, your credit card companies, they will determine the interest rate based on your credit score. So extremely important that if you haven't built up your credit, that you do it pre.
Okay, so I totally learned something in what you just said. It never occurred to me, and I'll certainly share this with my clients, to run all 3 credit reports. I'd never even thought about one might be different than the other.
They shouldn't, but they can be.
Okay, so really important, and I will definitely make this part of my dialogue with people. But number 2, this is so, what you said, so incredibly important, because I did interview an attorney in Northern California who talked about the financial obligations of the other spouse if debt was created in one spouse's name, and of course I'm going to take care of it, yes, and that goes in their debt section, in their subsection, in the settlement agreement, and then for some reason they don't. Innocently, they lost their job. Innocently, something happened. And they just couldn't. The credit card company, if that debt was created between date of marriage and date of separation, which is the community property relationship of the couple, that credit card company will come after you, the other spouse. It doesn't matter what's written in your settlement agreement. They couldn't care less. You didn't call them up. That's what this attorney said. You didn't call them up. And then I had another attorney that said, Judy, that attorney is wrong. Okay, this is why people litigate and argue. So the real deal is, I think, what you just said: run every credit report, see where you see what all the debt obligations are for you, and then I guess you should have the other spouse run theirs too and compare.
Yes, absolutely. But at a minimum, you're going to have yours and you're going to have joint.
Okay, right. All right. Very good. Very good. But the new thing you said was, because I only thought you had to call and it would all be done, but you're saying put it in writing.
Because when I called the credit card company and I thought I'd taken care of it once I saw it, and they said, and then he ran it up and they said, you didn't put it in writing. There's nothing in our file. And I'm like, I didn't. I mean, I knew.
I guess you're right. You can't put a verbal conversation in a file, except you're thinking, though, well, they're taking notes. They're doing what they have to do on their end as a result of your conversation.
I think it was, well, I think it was a cop out on their end, but irregardless, I'm just saying, going forward, make sure you take the time to, and on your credit report, you'll have the address of, the credit card. You got to include the credit card number, and your name, obviously. And, just jot off a quick letter, or even have it in, Google Docs. And all you have to do is change the name and the account number and the address. And, you can generate multiple letters that way. And obviously put them in the mail, mail them, keep a copy, and, document when you mailed it. And
okay.
So, yeah.
I think that was exceptionally good advice. Linda, is it you, or do you have them talk to somebody else if employment is necessary, because there's just not enough money to live when everything's equally divided? Who helps a woman in that case?
Well, we certainly have the conversation. And one thing we do is talk about, what skills does she have? What does she enjoy doing? What would she like to do? And I mean, and then it is up to her. I don't help her with resume writing or interviews or anything like that. But we do have the conversation of, if she wants this kind of a lifestyle, this is the income she needs. And sometimes that's a wake-up call. And it's like, oh, okay, I don't, and then it's re-evaluating the budget and what does she really need versus what she wants. And so that is where I help them shape reality and seeing what kind of a job that she would qualify for. And
yes, and to compensate for the difference between what you're walking away with financially and what you need to live.
Right. And the other conversation we have, which is critical, is when do you take Social Security benefits?
Oh, okay. This is starting to come up more and more. Keep going.
So, you can take Social Security as early as 62, but you're not going to get your full benefit. It's reduced. Depending on the year you were born, that determines your full retirement age. And right now, I think it's around 66 and some months. Anyway, so depending on your full retirement age, which Social Security will tell you, this is another thing when you're going through a divorce, you should have both parties run their Social Security statements so they can see what their benefits going to be, what their full retirement age will be, and what the benefits of each one will be, because that also needs to be equalized. So then if you take your benefits at full retirement age, let's say it's 66 right now, you get your full benefits. If you can wait until you're age 70, you actually get an 8% increase per year, guaranteed in your benefits. So there's a lot of strategy depending on the situation. I mean, if they're short on cash, obviously they're going to take their Social Security at least at full retirement age. And maybe that's where alimony kicks in. Maybe he pays alimony until she qualifies for her full retirement benefits and Social Security. I've had clients who have, she's taken out a life insurance policy on him because he's paying alimony until she can draw on her 401k
Yes.
at age now at 72. And it's on his life, but he's paying her alimony until age 72. She owns the policy and she is paying the premium because she doesn't want to rely on him to pay the premium. Maybe he's not going to have income. Maybe he's going to forget. I had a client who, it always came up to the last day the premium was due. And then, he usually would pay it, but sometimes. And so anyway, of course, working with the legal, mediator, there's a lot of different ways, but also a life insurance on the life of the person who is paying some kind of support to a certain age.
Okay. So now you have a woman that has some money. It's a good settlement. It's a good settlement, but she's never dealt with the family finances. So then you go through a program with her, a coaching program with her to show her how to use the money that she's receiving from the divorce.
Exactly, because, once again, kind of going to the emotional aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
what I have seen is if women are not allowing themselves to heal emotionally from the divorce, even if they're the ones that filed for divorce, they are getting gratification in other ways. And often that is through shopping. And I counsel a lot of women who have closets full of clothes, tags are still hanging on them. And it's that endorphin high when you actually buy something, whether it's online or in a store, and it is the adrenaline rush that you're not getting in any other kind of an emotional attachment. You're not getting those hugs, you're not getting, words of affirmation. And so that's how you are getting fulfilled. And so I work with them through that emotional money block, we call it, and understand why they are spending the way they're spending. Otherwise, they may think they have a lot of money, but if they aren't conscious and aware and intentional on how they're spending it, they can run through it way too fast.
So do you, when somebody's hired you and they've gotten their settlement, is your first step to take a big chunk of it and put it somewhere? Is that the first step you take, is to not, I mean, theoretically, pull money away from them? This is what you must invest.
No, I am not going to tell them what to do because they won't follow through if I tell them what to do. The first step is understanding their money story. I haven't put it in a savings account. I haven't put it in a high yield savings account that's not attached to their bank account. So I don't want it easy to be able to draw on it,
Yeah.
but I want it sitting in a place that we can work through together what the best use of those funds are. But we start with money, her money story, her money blocks, and then work through. And I hate the word budget. I don't know about you, but when I say that, I constrict. It's restraining. And so I use my own method and I call it the intentional money spending and saving plan.
I like that.
And that's based on your values. You have to understand what your values are. Everyone has to understand what their values are. And so I work with my clients and we go through a values exercise. What are your values? What's your North Star? Where do you draw the line in the sand? Those are your values. And you have to understand what your values are before you can set financial goals that are in alignment with your values. You can say, oh, I'm going to budget, or yeah, I'm going to make sure that I don't go shopping or I don't use a credit card. But if that goal isn't in alignment with your values, you're not going to follow through. That's actually why New Year's resolutions, 3 weeks into New Year's resolutions, something like 85% are gone by the wayside. It's because people don't understand their values and they're not setting their goals in alignment. So anyway,
how do you approach that, Linda? How does a person approach their values?
Well, there's a lot of different ways, but the question I start with is, and you have to answer it with a value. So a value is something like joy, love, friendship, words like that. So my first question is, what's important about money to you?
Oh,
What was the first word that come to mind when I asked you that question, Judy?
security.
And that's what I often hear. My next question is going to be, so what's important about security to you?
I won't be homeless.
Okay. And what's important about that security and having a security in your finances? What's important about that to you?
That I can live without stress, that's created as a result of worrying if I'll have enough money
So
to meet my financial obligations, at least that.
Mm-hmm. So maybe freedom.
Yeah.
So we keep going up. And so as you keep moving up, as I continue asking you the questions, and we spend quite a bit of time, so it's not like, in 10 seconds, you're going to have your 10 values.
Right.
But once you understand what your values are, then your goals will line up with that. So here's for instance, one of my clients, she was going to, we'll continue with Starbucks since we started with them every day. And so once I walked her through the values exercise, one of her values was friendship.
Mm.
And so when she was going to Starbucks and we had this conversation, I said, okay, what do you do at Starbucks? And she goes, well, I get my latte and I sit down and a friend meets me and we get to have a conversation. I said, okay, so are you going for the coffee or are you going for the conversation with your friend? And she goes, I'm going to meet my friend. That's what's important to me. I said, so friendship, you're one of your values. She goes, yeah. And I said, well, what do you think about meeting your friend somewhere else? And she goes, I never thought about it. I said, you enjoy getting out. I knew this about her. I said, what if you and your friend met and took a walk? What if you and you can take your own coffee in a thermostat if you want to, in a thermos, or a water bottle. I said, and she goes, oh my gosh. She goes, we can still have the conversation. I said, absolutely. So by illustrating and bringing to light why she was spending, she was able to reduce that spending. Now, I said, now don't cut it out completely. If you enjoy going to Starbucks, then allow yourself once a week. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's making sure that how you're spending your money is intentional and in alignment with your values.
It's wonderful, Linda. That really, really is wonderful. And if people do that, which means they will inevitably change some of their routine, is the resulting effect pride, feeling proud of yourself and more in control of yourself and your situation and your future?
Absolutely. More confidence,
Yeah.
more security, more, so many women I work with go from, I can't manage my money, I'm bad with money, mainly because they've heard it their life, too. I am good with money. I am a good money manager. I am confident that I can pay my bills on time. And so, yes, definitely.
That's really wonderful. Is there a situation that we haven't talked about with the long-term marriages going into divorce?
I think one of the areas that needs to be addressed and isn't talked about enough is long-term care. We women live longer, and on average 5 years longer. And so for women to live to 90, 95, I always tell my kids I'm going to be around to harass them until I'm 100. My doctor says I probably will be. But it's long-term care. Most of us don't want to depend on our kids to take care of us.
Right.
We want to be independent. We want to make sure that we are taken care of, that we have that taken care of. And there's a number of ways to do it, but I do think it's something that needs to be discussed more often. And, too many times people say, well, Medicare or Medi-Cal will pay for that. They don't. They do not pay for in-home health care. Now, Medicare might pay for the first 100 days if it's in a skilled nursing facility. There's certain things around that. But long-term care, when you cannot perform 2 out of the 6 acts or 5 acts of daily living,
Right.
then you qualify for long-term care, whether it's people coming into your home and helping you, feed you, bathe you, whatever it is, or going to an assisted living. But so many people want to stay in their home. And so then it's like, okay, so how are we going to finance it? And so those are conversations that are very important to have with people, women going through great divorce.
Are there states in which at-home care is more expensive than going into a independent living place?
I think it depends on, I don't know what the exact number of hours is, but I think it's how many hours you're having people come into your home and take care. If you have 24-hour care in your house, that's very expensive.
Yeah.
If you have somebody coming in an hour or 2 a day, that's probably not so bad. And so I think it comes to, and that also will depend on your health. So if you've got somebody coming in 24 hours a day, you need a lot of assistance. Yeah. And that's, probably before you got to that point, but that's definitely probably when assisted living is required.
I'm very conversant about this because I went through this with my mom. She never worked. Well, she worked when she was younger, but not throughout the marriage. And she was just so very lucky. My dad wasn't wealthy, but he did organize his finances well. And my sister, through her research, found out that my dad, as a World War II veteran, he was in the Navy. He wasn't in, Army combat. He still qualified for a pension, or I don't know the exact word, but a disbursement of money monthly that added to his pension, that added to his Social Security, allowed my mother to live in a beautiful independent living place where the nicest people running it, living there, beautiful. And so we were so happy, although she did complain royally. It doesn't matter. She was actually happy. She just didn't want to admit it. But this leads me to the last question. How do you know that you're getting the right long-term care policy? Have we not heard horror stories about people who got the wrong policy, or the company went belly up? None of the benefits they thought they were going to get did they get. Let's talk about this a second.
So I am an advocate of life insurance with a long-term care benefit, as opposed to a standalone long-term care insurance policy. So a long-term care insurance policy, a standalone one, is kind of like your car insurance or your homeowner's insurance. If you don't use it, you lose it. I like the life insurance policies, and they're structured different ways. So I'm just in generalities. A life insurance policy with a long-term care benefit is what I like, because that way, if you don't use it for long-term care, your heirs still have the death benefit, the life insurance part of it. If you need it for yourself, then you can pull a certain percentage, once again, depending on the policy. Say you have a $1 million death benefit. And some policies allow you to draw up to 80%. So 800,000 could be drawn on it for your long-term care needs. Now, if you do that, obviously it's reducing the life insurance benefit. So if you drew out all 800, you're going to have 200,000 left as a death benefit. But that's okay, because your kids didn't have to support you. You supported yourself, and you still left them a little something. So that's just an illustration, but and that's my personal bias, is that is what I prefer, because that way, if I never have to use it, which I hope I never do, then I'm leaving more to my kids. And what a perfect scenario is that?
Okay, now identifying this life insurance policy with a long-term care portion to it. I may have signed, I didn't, but I think I was ready to sign an insurance policy that I was told by the agent had a long-term care arm to it. What's the word to use? Say it.
Benefit or rider.
Okay, a long-term care benefit or rider. Thank you. So before I signed and gave the check, the first check, I said, can you show me in this policy where that is?
Yes, you should.
It didn't exist. So the
Well,
agent
good for you for asking the question.
Oh my God. Yes, thank God, because the agent said, oh, well, if you go into a long-term care facility, the money that you have being dispersed to you, that'll just go to the facility. I said, that can happen anyway. I can just redirect the money. Linda, was he telling me the truth? Is that what a long-term care benefit is? The money that you're going to get just goes to the facility?
It depends on the policy, but what they should be able to do is run you an illustration, it's called, that shows how much you can draw down on your death benefit, and B, the maximum per month that they'll pay out. So they should be able to run you an illustration on what that long-term care disbursement would look like.
But okay.
So you should be able to see something.
Okay, I still don't think I get it. And if
Okay.
I don't get it, somebody else is
No,
not.
that's fine. Sorry.
So hang in there. I thought if something had a long-term benefit, long-term care benefit to it, there was an additional amount of money that kicked in once you needed to go to independent living, different than what you would normally get if you were retiring and cashing in your policy, getting disbursement on a monthly basis. I don't think I understand it.
Well, yeah, those are two very different things.
Okay.
So first of all, I'm going to back up. And so the first question to ask yourself is, why am I buying a life insurance policy?
Okay, so what if you're buying it because you want a revenue stream at a certain age on top of whatever else you have as a revenue stream?
Okay, so then it's income, tax-free income, because proceeds from a life insurance policy are tax-free income in retirement. Okay, then he was probably correct in saying, well, instead of you getting your monthly paycheck, it was going to go to the long-term care facility. That makes sense. Not all policies are set up for you to get an income, monthly income stream while you're living.
Oh, okay.
As a matter of fact, most life insurance is bought for the death benefit. So you're insuring your life until the day you die. And when you die, your beneficiaries, in my case, it's my two children, will get the death benefit on my policy. So let's go back to that $1 million, easy round number.
Mm-hmm.
So when I die, my kids will each get $500,000, total of $1 million. If before I die, I go into a long-term care facility and now draw down some of that $1 million death benefit that normally would go to my kids, but I'm drawing it down for my long-term care needs, and say I draw it down to 500,000, I pass away, my death benefit is now only 500,000. So my kids get to split that and they'll each get 250. So my purpose in buying that life insurance policy was A, to insure my life and leave something, it's a legacy planning tool, leave something to my children. But secondly, and more importantly, was to finance my long-term care needs. So my kids didn't have to foot the bill. So they didn't have to sell every last asset. And then if anything's left, they would get something as a death benefit when I pass.
All right. So there's more than one type of insurance policy. This is now what I'm getting, life insurance policy. There's the kind that does not disperse money to you at a certain age so that you have a revenue stream. And there's one that does.
Yes.
And so I guess I should have believed the insurance agent when he said, well, this money just gets redirected to the facility. And so my thing was, well, what if it's not enough for the facility? In my head, an insurance policy would pay for everything up to a certain amount of money at a facility. But I think I was wrong, wasn't I, in my understanding?
Possibly. But the dollar amount that is paid out of the policy, once again, they should be able to run an illustration for you so that you know, okay, say at age 85, I have to go into a facility. What is the amount that my life insurance policy could pay? And they should be able to run, and maybe it's, I don't know, 10,000 a month. And by the time you're 85, maybe that facility is going to cost 15,000 a month. So the difference, that $5,000 difference, you do have to pay out of your other assets.
Right. Okay. All right. Maybe I better call that insurance agent back then.
Well, but I want to add this caveat. So don't get confused. Okay, so this life insurance is so confusing. Do not get confused between an annuity and a life insurance policy.
Talk about it. What's the difference? I was confused.
So annuities are life insurance products, and the purpose of an annuity is most annuities are to give you income in retirement.
Okay.
Okay. Which is different than a life insurance policy, which is typically insuring giving you a death benefit for the life.
Okay. All right. And okay, so it's easier for people who don't have children, then it is all for them and that's all they have to worry about. But I guess for people who have children, you want that legacy, you want to be able to leave something, but honestly, you do have to take care of yourself first.
Absolutely.
And even though you may have children that say, oh my God, of course I want to, I'm old fashioned, I want you to live with me. Blah, blah, blah. When the time comes, it depends on what everybody's situation is, whether they even can. The idea that, well, my daughter said that I should just come and live with her. Okay, that's now. In 20 to 30 years, who knows what your daughter's situation is going to be, whether they live in a house that can even accommodate your physical needs.
Oh, that's a whole nother story. Absolutely.
Yeah. What if there's stairs everywhere and you can't walk upstairs anymore? You're out of the game. I mean, what are they going to do? Turn the living room into your bedroom? Then nobody has a life. I mean, oh, this is so hard. It's not even funny.
But it's so true. But it's so real, Judy. I mean, people are facing these decisions every day. And that's why I think it's so important that we talk about money now. So you got a plan in place.
Right.
I mean, that's my goal, is to educate women and inspire them so they can have confidence and clarity around their money so they can live the life they desire.
This should be taught in schools, shouldn't it? There's so much that should be taught in schools, but yes, we do need to educate each other. Because I remember, even though I had always had jobs from an early teenager, the normal teenage jobs, I remember when I was graduating from college, I said, well, I know I have to earn a living and I know I have to pay rent and I know all of that. I just don't understand the overall concept of money and the place it has in our lives. We weren't taught it at home. It wasn't important, although my dad was great at managing money. But I think that's just has to be part of our life education, is learning how to relate to, use, work with money.
Absolutely. And that's a whole nother discussion, which I would love to have at another time. And I call it how to make money your best friend. And it starts with the relationship with money, but also my belief is money is an energy force. I believe it's a tool. It's a tool to be used, and not money for money's sake, but what money can do for us and what we can do for others.
Well, I think we need to do another episode, and we need to address the younger generation, because I know in my demographic mix for the listeners, I have two strong demographics. I have 30 to 40 women and 60 plus women. So we've just addressed the 60 plus women, but let's come back and let's address the younger so we can get them set, even though they're divorcing. I mean, this is the divorce podcast. So you're divorcing. Let's use this as a time to reorganize your whole relationship to money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd love to. Thank you.
All right. So Linda, we're having in the show notes, as people listen, they can see the bio and how to get in touch with you. But for those people who like to take notes and they want to put your contact information in their notes right now, best way to get in touch with you.
It's really easy. www.lindalingo, that's LINDALINGO.com.
I
And
love you have such an easy name. Thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you very much for contacting me. And of course, thank all of you. I do every episode for listening. I hope you have found this extremely beneficial. I certainly did. I am always open to your topic ideas, and you can reach me through the website for this podcast, theamicableddivorceexpert.com. And as always, have an amicable day.